All right, so welcome everybody to another episode of the Lest We Forget podcast, a historical podcast by Tenement Yard Media. I'm your host, Davey, and on this episode, we're going to talk about the Bulla and pink milk, the famous government supply meal that was largely geared towards low-income schools, primary schools especially, in Jamaica. And yeah, we're just going to talk about like the rise and the fall since it's no longer in Jamaican schools and the reasons why it's no longer in Jamaican schools and even the reasons why it began in the first place. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that. So I'm going to start there. Alright, so the first school feeding program in Jamaica started in 1926, where lunches were provided to the public schools through charitable efforts, and it had a good run where by 1939 the colonial government started to provide school lunches across the island, right? And then we saw like around 1955 really, where with increased US presence on the island, school feeding programs just exploded across the island, largely because aid from the US started to flow in Jamaica. Cool? And by the time we got independence in 1962, we just started to see this. There different issues came about. And one of those issues that came about was malnutrition. Like, it was always there, but know that like as an independent country, things started to become on the forefront. You see me? I'm trying to say. So you start to have reports that malnutrition was the largest single cause of death in Jamaica for children under the age of 1. And to tackle the issue of children who are on the verge of malnutrition and entering the public school system, the government wanted to tackle that, right? And so you saw over the next decade after independence, them just trying to like figure out how them gonna do this, how them gonna tackle this, what them can do, like just a lot of programs. A lot of studies to see the best way to tackle this. So in 1971, the government signed a Food for Peace agreement with USAID, which is the US Agency for International Development, and that expanded the already school feeding programs that was already on the island. And by 1973, the government-owned company, Nutrition Production Company, NPL, that was established to maintain a more structured school feeding program by producing and distributing a nutritious meal to designated school children. Like, that is what it was created. That was what NPL was created for. And what you're gonna have is that with the aim to increase the daily protein intake of children, because really a protein they really wanted to focus on, because again, malnutrition. The meal that they provided was greatly subsidized, so children from low-income families could afford it because they were the primary target audience, right? And in its inception, the company supplied public schools throughout Kingston and St. Andrew metropolitan area with a bun and a half pint of milk. And the milk wasn't necessarily just milk. The milk was a combination of skim milk powder, which was processed with butter, oil or soy, and then flavored with vanilla. Cool? Let me try this something to make it appealing to children, right? And then outside of the Kingston metropolitan area, some schools were granted funds to purchase meat and vegetables to provide children with a cooked meal. And then with the expansion of NPL, schools outside of Kingston and St. Andrew gradually started to join the NPL program. So you start to see more schools joining the program and more students be assisted, right? By 1976, with assistance from the UN World Food Program, WFP, a patty and milk program was also introduced. So, kind of crazy to think about now, giving the price a patty, but that was the program, was around. And by 1978, reports had that around 120,000 school children in Kingston and St. Andrew and around 100,000 in rural Jamaica were being supplied with a bun or patty and a half pint of milk. Or in some cases, some schools were given cooked lunch. Because as I said before, some schools were being provided with funds to buy meat and vegetables to cook and give children, right? And by the early 1980s, some of these programs were cut. right? Because, given the financial issues that Jamaica had in the 70s, which is another episode by itself. I'm not forget too much in that, honestly. Just life is hard for in the 70s for anybody who's just like not aware of that period. And by the 80s, with a lot of IMF came in. They always did there, but like a new government, new restructured, new policy in place, a lot of programs got cut. And one of those programs was the Patty and Meal program, right? But we're still at the issue of children and malnutrition, and some children just coming to school not eating, and that affecting their learning abilities. But while Jamaica got through all of this, on the other side of the world, another school feeding program was being praised. And this time it was the Nutri-Bun and Milk program in the Philippines. And the Nutri-Bun, as it was called, was developed by USAID in the 1970 to assist the Philippines, something I feel like that's real. The Philippines, let's go with that, to assist the Philippines feed Philippine school children in the wake of a series of typhoons that wrecked the island. So it's from there that a Nutri-Bun program started. And what they did with that program, right, was so unique and so successful, was that they use a base product that could be modified with local ingredients, and the product gained success as it extended the shelf life of the product, which in this case was a bun. So they were using readily available products, right, on the island. So you never have to like pay a large amount of money for like logistics and stuff, because it was on the island, and they manipulate it in a way where the shelf life can be extended. So you can produce in bulk, sent all over. It lasts a long time, and children got the daily protein intake that they needed, right? And it was this program that the new Minister of Education, Dr. Mavis Gilmore, she look on what them do and say, wait, this can make sense, yeah, so. You see? And Dr. Mavis Gilmore, she graduated in 1951 with a medical degree from Howard University. So she's a trained doctor, right? And she returned to Jamaica to do her surgical rotation and soon became a surgeon specialist. And with this, I have to mention that with she being a surgeon specialist, she is the first woman surgeon specialist in the Caribbean, right? And it was while working as a consultant surgeon at KPH, Kingston Public Hospital, that she decided to enter politics by way of GLP. And so when the party won the 1980 election, Dr. Gilmore was appointed Minister of Education, right? So that's just a bit of background on her and how her medical training played a role in her making health and nutrition, something that she really wanted to tackle in a cheap way. I remember telling you, program did get cut given a lot of policy changes that we had after the 1980 election. So by 1984, when she has see everything where Philippines are do, she has said, all right then, Jamaica, we go try out this and see what can go on. And so, again, in 1984, her ministry adopted the Philippines Nutri-Bun and Meal program in Jamaica schools, primarily primary schools. And under this new school feeding programs, primary schools are granted meals twice a week. And the meals consisted of a half pint of milk and a bun that had a 3-day shelf life. Because I'm telling you can manipulate it, and it was manipulated to have a longer shelf life. And Dr. Gilmore, she had high hopes of the program. You see me? She did an interview where she told the media that the programs would be an alternative to cooked meals that many schools are trouble maintaining and would increase attendance. Because even though earlier I mentioned that some schools were giving money to buy meat and vegetable, bro, like that had issues. You had it attracted pests. Some schools never had the storage to store them things there. And the smell bother a lot of children and teachers and just faculty while it was being prepared. So this was an alternative that she championed and she was ready to go, right? And initially the program was supported by the WFP, from 1984 to 1997, where additional resources were given to the government by USAID, the European Economic Community, ECC, and the Canadian International Development Agency, CEDA. And when the WFP stopped sponsoring the program in 97, the government of Jamaica continued to maintain the program. So that there was some success in that, right? Like when I see Jamaican government a continue something, even when you have the changing of the hands when it comes to like which party is important, then I know it's a success, right? Or at least the pros outweigh the cons, basically. And as time passed, the Nutribon program, especially the Bulla and pink milk, became the face of the of the program itself, which is why it became like so famous, for persons who went to school during those periods. And the pink milk was same milk, powdered milk, with a base of soy and oil and butter, and them just add some coloring. Again, you need to attract children to it. And at the height of the Nutribon program in Jamaica, we had around 600,000 students receiving Nutribon or cooked meals for free or a small fee, right? So that was how successful the entire program was. And it was going. But even though, it was successful, there were still some problems. And as time passed, those problems started to get bigger, all right? So one of the first problems voiced by teachers was that the Nutribon program took away from their main function of being a teacher, which is to teach. Cool? Largely because I didn't have to deal with things. I didn't have to do administrative work. And as one teacher told Dr. Winsome Enchuno, who in the in the mid-2000s was doing their doctoral research, did a series of interviews, and this is what one teacher told Dr. Chuno.
Naturally, it is more work, and sometimes the crates that were sent to the classroom contained punctured milk containers. With these, students would spill the milk all over the classroom floor. Teachers then had to clean up. Many teachers were unhappy with performing the custodial function that accompanied the distribution of the Nutribon.
Then there were also complaints from some teachers that because of these additional responsibilities, it infringed on their lunchtime, right? So some teachers even use the Nutribon responsibilities as a means to ask for additional pay. You understand? Because them do work where them not sign up for, right? So they were using that to be like, hey, we need some extra funds to deal with this, isn't it? And the ministry, I'm gonna tell them like, yo, pause. So what the ministry did was that they started to supply schools with helpers whose job was to assist with the distribution of the meals, right? So the ministry was trying to like meet people halfway when it comes to that issue. But then you have to understand that Jamaica development kind of one-sided, especially when it comes to like urban areas. You understand? So some problems were urban, some problems that some parts of Jamaica have, other parts never have. And for rural schools, then they have got you problems that was unique to them. So in some rural schools, improper road infrastructure led to many teachers and principals being responsible for transporting a Nutribon to their schools, right? And for this, I'm gonna go back to Dr. Chuno, doctoral research, and this is what one teacher told him.
The people at the ministry said to me, if you can come and pick it up yourself, you'll get it. Therefore, you see, I used my VW for years until it rotted out. I lost a car.
And then with the same issue around improper road structure, the transportation and the bad road itself would just cause delivery trucks to break down and not reach the school in time. And in some cases, school, them are gone months without receiving anything just because delivery truck just can't pass them there. You understand? And in other instances, the insufficient supply of refrigerated trucks would mean that one truck would be supplying multiple schools. Because remember, milk, you're going to need milk per ice. You see? And coupled with that road problems, by the time the truck reached some of the school, the milk spoiled, which defeat the purpose of feeding children. Now, the spoiled milk was not only an issue because of delivery, right? But storage as well. Because remember, up top I tell you that at some point, the ministry was giving schools money to buy meat and vegetable, but you had an issue when it comes to storing that meat and vegetable for cook. And it's the same issue that reached the milk, right? Some schools just never have the cold storage facilities to keep the milk. So even if it did want, I say, like, all right, delivering is an issue, right? The bad roads are gonna cause the delivery truck for be late. Maybe if we just like restructure the logistics and like put it on like, if they come Thursday, we can reroute everything so them leave out Monday and then we can reach Wednesday. But some schools just never have nowhere to keep it overnight. You understand? And as such, it would sit on the floor of classrooms and staff room for hours, right? So by the time it was distributed to students, it caused a lot of health issues such as stomach aches and diarrheas. And to deal with this lack of cold storage that some schools had, especially schools that had bad road leading to them, as an alternative, sweetened juice instead of milk would be added to the program. So some persons who are, older millennials, stuff like that, that age demographic, they can remember getting like bag juice, like the yellow color bag juice. Yeah, that was like supposed to be an alternative to the milk, you see, to some institutions, right? Now, by the mid-2010s, rather, the Rural Agricultural Development Authority and the Banana Board, they started to provide raw materials at a low cost to NPL. And as such, around that time, you start to see a wider variety of things start to be added to the NPL program. So you start to see cheese bread, carrot bread, carrot muffin, banana bread, banana muffin. All of that just started to be offered to offerings, because a lot of students were complaining that, they might get tired of the bun, they might get tired of the bulla. You see me I try to say? And even though you expanded the offerings that students had and students could choose, and it don't become monotonous, it don't become boring. On the flip side, the program is supposed to increase the protein levels in children, right? But no, with all of these things, and you have the sweetener juice now, it really increased their refined sugar levels. Is it? So those protein, them sugar levels, refined sugar, that is, right? And it did not help that the nutritional data was not printed on any of these products at the time, because can you just remember it was coming out on plastic bag? I eat that, you don't really know what in it. And this became a concern for many parents, school officials, and nutrition experts. And as the registered nutritionist Shannon Grant told the Gleaner in 2018,
"We don't know the ingredients or the nutritional content of these products. It makes no sense whatsoever for a nutritional company to be distributing something to children that has no form of labeling to indicate what they are consuming, and especially now with this drive by the government to get persons to get healthier."
Then another issue came with the status of the Nutribon milk programs, right? As some students wanted to distance themselves from the Nutribon associated with the lower class status. And because of that, they refused to purchase or accept the Bulla milk, right? Because again, it was geared towards low income students. And I mean, you're a child, you don't really want people to know that financial issues, can't eat, stuff like that. So because of the look of what the program mean, of who the program is supposed to help, some students just never accept it, and because of that, they had nothing and hardly anything to eat, right? And then because this is Jamaica, and this will always be a problem in everything at this point, honestly. The problem of corruption reach the program itself. So the same Dr. Chuno doctoral research, this is what one person told him.
"Some of the buns started vanishing out of the delivery truck. Sometimes the ministry documented that 24 bags were sent to the school, but you only received 20. Therefore, you have to be alert because some other people saw it as means of obtaining a little extra money.
And then in a June 3rd, 2012 article, the Gleaner did a whole investigation expose into this corruption in the program, right? And what the Gleaner reported was that several primary schools were overcharging students for the products. The same students that they're supposed to help, that the program is supposed to help, schools found a way to exploit that help, right? So at the time, this is 2012, the ministry mandated that students were only to contribute $2 per meal for a bulla, a bun, or a cheese bread, and a drink of milk or sweetener juice. Like that was what they were supposed to pay, $2. And the ministry also stated that even if the student couldn't pay the $2, you cannot turn them away. Still give them. You see me? Still give them. Right? But then, according to the Gleaner, schools are charging students between $3 and $4 per meal. You understand? And then pocket that profit. Cool? And the article went on to state that the Nutribon products were being sold to adults instead of students. And this is just breaching government policy overall. This was not supposed to be sold to adults. This was supposed to be sold to students. But what happened is that when you're selling to adults, schools are jacking up the prices, you see? So them could make a even more profit. So as one source told the Gleaner, a bag of juice or milk that contain 10 single product pouches, they must sell that for all 40 to 50. Right? $40 to $50. Cool? To outsiders, well, a bag of 10 bullas is sold for $20. So it's just like profit. And the people the students, children who are supposed to help, them not left with nothing. So all of that happened in the program. And with all of these issues and numerous complaints, numerous problems, by the late 2010s, you start to hear whispering that a restructuring of the Nutribon program was on the horizon. And the whispers became definite, right? Got a speech, right? In early 2018 when the now Minister of Education, he was Minister of Education in 2018, Rural Reid, he announced that several food programs under the NPL, including Bulla's, because Bulla is the face of the program, would be removed from school. And when the Gleaner went and spoke to him, this is what he said.
We found that Bulla, not Nutribon, was being wasted. A lot of children were not having Bulla for lunch. The Bulla went home, and a lot of resources, as far as our estimation is concerned, were wasted in this endeavor.
And all of this that he said was in keeping with another statement that the ministry would clarify to Gleaner later on.
In promoting a healthier lifestyle among our children, and based on a survey conducted in the 2017-2018 school year, the results showed that students were not desirous of the products being offered by the nutrition production company. With this in mind, the ministry had decided to take on a new approach in providing more nutritious snacks for our students and in keeping with the strategic direction of the school feeding program.
Now, even though a restructuring was happening and was going to happen, by September 2018, reports surfaced that school officials had received few or no alternatives since the removal of Bulla for the new academic year. So they took out Bulla, but there was nothing to replace it. And something happened, but this didn't happen broadly, but it happened to a few schools. A few weeks later, in 2018, outcry came from Rojas Curley, hope I'm pronouncing that name, first name correct, that's Rojas, who was the principal of Cassava River Primary, who objected to the distribution of Manapak rice that he was sent by NPL. And these packages were distributed by the Christian organization Feed My Starving Children. And that's what you're seeing on the packaging. And according to Mr. Curlew, no direction was given on how to prepare it, right? And when the Star went and talked to him, this is what he stated in October 18, 2018 article.
I have to ask my colleagues in the cluster how this thing is prepared because we didn't know how to. This is not the first time I have seen them because I know Food for the Poor has it. Some years ago they sent a few here, but I didn't have a problem with that because to send them to the school in general is okay. But to send them to replace the nutritional products is where I have a big problem.
Still, the ministry responded that even though they were aware of the monopack rice, it was not a substitute for MPL products. You understand? This was just like a one-off thing with them they just get. You see? Like, this is what they said to the Gleaner verbatim.
In fact, there was a one-off donation of manapacks to the ministry by a charitable organization in the latter part of the last school year. The ministry decided to share the commodity with all of our primary schools.
And as such, in 2021, August 2021, it was announced by the ministry that Bulla and Pink Milk is officially halted in Jamaican schools. And that's the end of the famed Bulla and Pink Milk. Now, in the wake of the restructuring of the Nutribone programs, PATH, the program for the advancement through health and education, they have expanded their duties to provide cooked meals, including breakfast and lunch to students. And the program has also increased monetary output to lower income families with students in public schools. So it just PATH step up, right? More contributions to that program to expand it, given the issues with Nutribone. And then in 2017, the creation of a national food industry task force, because I knew it wouldn't be a Jamaican policy without a task force at some point. That task force brought together stakeholders on the food industry and various other interest entities such as the National Consumer League, the Jamaica Agricultural Society, and the University of Technology to develop new dietary guidelines. And as such, in recent years, the ministry has established a ban on certain sugary products in Jamaican schools. And however, I should say this, the National School Nutrition Policy that came out of that, which Green Paper was shared in May 2022, it has yet to be finalized and implemented. And I say this, at the time of this episode recording, that Green Paper, it's not finalized and implemented yet, so we don't really know where that is and where's that going. Yeah. And then in May 2023, the ministry announced that the government has provided almost $9 billion towards the school feeding program, so the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year, with the aim for the MPL to provide the breakfast snack component for the school feeding programs. And as such, today, the MPL operates 3 production plants in Kingston, St. Mary, and Westmoreland. So around that time that we saw all of that, and around 2021, the Bulla and Pink Milk do away with in Jamaican schools, officially left Jamaican schools. And even though it has gone, the importance of this episode really, besides giving this history of this famed food product that again define a lot of people primary school years, what this episode really is to look at the legacy of Dr. Gilmore and how this program that she really championed, that she was adamant was going to change Jamaica education sector, and it did for a period of time. It really did. That she and that program has shaped the childhood of thousands of Jamaican students, like a lot. And yeah, so this is where we are today. No Bulla and Pink Milk, but we have some other stuff there. So that's the rise and fall of the Bulla and Pink Milk.
And with that, we call an end to today's episode. To view the sources used in this episode and or recommendations to learn more about the topic, visit our website at tenementyardmedia.com. A transcript of this episode will be available 5 days after it has been posted to podcast outlets. And remember, this is a conversation we really want to hear from you. Follow our social media pages at tenementyard_ on both Instagram and Twitter to view additional postings on this episode and updates on other content created by Tenement Yard Media. We're open to conversation about this and other episodes, and really all happenings around Caribbean history and culture. Just a quick note before we leave, we're over on Patreon at patreon.com/tenementyardmedia if you would like to support the show with a monthly donation of as little as $1. You can also make a donation of your choice at tenementyardmedia.com. Until next time, this has been Lest We Forget, a historical podcast from Tenement Yard Media.